All right. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to do this live. I have my very good friend, Jim Kerr, joining me today. I'm really excited to chat with him. We always have a great time. We've done some projects together. We always have a great time sharing thoughts on the psychology of leaderships and coaching and all things making our leaders better. So, I'm about to bring him on and really excited to hear about a few things. One, we're going to talk about his new book. We're also going to dive into what makes a good leader, what makes a good leader a confident leader. Um, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and so what sets leaders apart? So, let's welcome Jim. All right, my friend. Hi.
Hey, Mandy.
It's good
Can't
to
wait
see
to,
you.
yeah, good to see you too. Can't wait to get on to this conversation with you, man.
I
I've been
know.
looking forward to it all week.
Me too. Me too. How you been?
Good, yeah.
Good.
Getting ready for the launch, keeping busy. But yeah, this is the highlight of the week for me, Mandy. So,
Likewise.
yeah.
Likewise. Well, I know people have seen us talk together, and a good bit of my audience knows you, and vice versa. But could you tell everybody a little bit about your background and a little bit about why you got into what you do?
Sure, yeah. I've been at it for, I hate to admit this, over 30 years. And I guess the real impetus to getting into all of it was very early in my career. I had a mentor that really encouraged me to express myself, to talk about what I thought was important, in regard to the work we were doing. And he plugged me into a project with a consultant who I won't name, um, but the guy wasn't terrific. So I started to sort of question some of the stuff that he was doing. And as it turned out, my mentor kind of backed me up, and that gave me a lot of confidence. And then the next thing I know, he says, why don't you write an article about this?
Hmm.
And
And had you done any
no,
writing
I
at
was
this point?
no, I mean, to tell you the truth, looking back at it, I guess I didn't know what I didn't know,
Sure.
So I was a bit naive, and I had this guy that was a 20-year veteran sort of take me under his wing, and he said, "Hey, you're onto something here. You got to talk about it with people." So he encouraged me to write an article. I submitted the article. It got published, and the next thing I know, I was getting calls from all over the place. People didn't know who I was, how old I was, or the lack of experience or anything, but was calling for advice, and that again, yeah, it kind of steamrolled my confidence. And the next thing I know, I was, writing books and doing what I'm doing now. So it
Right.
all came from just having a great mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Um, so you're how many books in now?
I have my seventh coming out tomorrow.
I'm excited.
Yeah, lucky number seven.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So I wanna jump into that some. So this book, it's the leadership handbook, correct?
Mm,
I have
yeah.
my order. I was on the pre-sale, so I'm anxiously awaiting to get it.
Oh, good. It drops tomorrow. Hopefully, you get it in the mail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
By
So
the way, I haven't even received mine, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But anyway, yeah.
well, all the things not in our control, right?
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So what made you decide to write this book and why?
Well, the thing was, it's sort of a culmination of 30 years of coaching. It's 101 tips. It's written in a way that I've got the tip, I've got an explanation as to why the tip might be important for a leader.
Hmm.
Um, and then I've got three different ideas that I offer for how to actually put the tip into practice. So depending on where you sit in an organization, anywhere from first ever supervisory role all the way up to the C-suite,
Yeah.
you've got an idea. So I've got an idea for a top leader, a middle manager, and a lower level, supervisory level leader. So the idea is to help people actually practice these principles, put them
Mm,
into use right away.
yeah,
And that's why I called it a handbook. It's really something that's referenceable, and hopefully everyone from an emerging leader to a seasoned pro will get something out of the book.
yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, you need those practical tips because you
Mm.
can know things in theory, and then knowing how to practically apply them is a different thing.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Just let's go after that for a minute. I mean, I think a lot of books in this space tend to spend a lot of time in theory.
mm-hmm,
This book's about practice.
yeah,
So it's not theoretical. It's all about how do I do something right now? You know, I've got a lack of communication in my team. What should I do? Go to that area. There will be dozens of tips on that topic, and
mm,
bingo. Hopefully, there's one that works for you.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of similar to, you know, like as a therapist, I can know all the things that I'm an expert
Hmm.
in, but that knowledge doesn't mean that I necessarily know how to apply it well. I try, I try to live in integrity in what I do, but knowledge of something and application are two totally different
Yeah.
things, and that's doing the work. And the hard part about and that is the hard part about it. So I'm curious. I wanted to pick your brain.
Yeah.
In all your years of doing this, and from the books you've written, your own observations, your own research, what would you say are the top two or three things that get people who are in positions of leadership um, in trouble or stuck, or maybe they think they're doing the right way, the right thing, they think they're leading people the right way, but then it's a blind spot? Like, what are some of those things that you have found to be the most common pitfalls?
Yeah, I think ego is the very first thing,
Yeah,
and it just gets in the way.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have had this conversation many times over the last few years, but I really feel like, people believe that their title means something.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the early tips in the book is those titles mean nothing.
Yeah.
A leader can emerge from within a team without a title,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got what it takes to sort of inspire followership,
Mm-hmm.
engage people and get them excited about something, and
Yeah.
so on. So I think ego is probably the number one challenge that a lot of leaders face.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So before you go on to any other ones, do you think that comes from having the title to begin with, or do you think that that is just someone who's already in a state of being egocentric just as a person?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think the folks that fall into the trap tend to be, I don't know, they tend to get there when they get the title.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, someone who's got an ego problem, challenge, and you know this better than I do, but um, they're going to be tough no matter what. It's they thought they should have been the boss, before they were really, capable
Mm-hmm.
of being it. So then when they get the title, they're really something,
Yeah.
But I think that said, most people who have this issue, I think, aren't necessarily egocentric. They're just more or less, excited about their title and using it as a crutch.
Yep.
Because I think leadership's a lot of work, and the very first tip in the book is you've got to choose to lead every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot
It's
of
a
responsibility.
yeah, it's a choice, and I think a lot of people take that responsibility, um, for granted because of the title, maybe.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. But what if I have some thoughts on this. I want to hear your thoughts on this. What if someone truly doesn't believe that they are leading, they're being that egotistical person and leading that way, but as an outsider, you can see that they totally are. Like, what happens when there's just this disconnect, and how do people identify if they are in their ego?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. So, firstly, I think folks like you and I can play a role there and help,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe tackling it from two different angles.
Hmm.
But but for sure, I think getting an outside point of view is
Yeah.
critical to help people identify blind spots. And ego is just one of them, right? And then the second thing is I think it creates just a natural dissonance. If you're letting your ego lead, you're going to feel like this isn't quite right, and you're likely going to get feedback from your peers and from the people who you're leading, and maybe even the people who you're being led by. They're going to let you know in some way. They
Yeah.
may not even be direct, but there'll be some kind of thing that's going to indicate to you, like maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing or
What could
acting.
be some examples of that?
Well, I think if you part of it's like nonverbals.
Yeah.
If you're in a room and you've got a meeting with, let's say, with your team, and you're going off about how great you are.
Right.
If you pay attention to people's
The glossed over
nonverbals,
eyes.
yeah, they are they going or are they engaged? Is there energy, or does it feel like it's dead in there? Like there's things that we can pick up just because we're human beings, but we have to pay attention. If you think you're everything in a bag of chips, then maybe you're not picking up on those nonverbals.
Yep, yep, yep. And that's where I also think that, the emotional intelligence piece is
Mm,
such a crucial part of it,
yeah,
because it's the ability to uh, know, manage, use, and perceive your own emotions, but then also the emotions of others. And if you're
yeah,
not attuned
right,
to the emotional climate of those that you work with, then you're missing the mark on lots of things.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think you know that first point that you made, and having a coach, having people where you're, getting feedback from, and you're constantly in a state of growing. If I would say if anyone is not doing that already, then you're already on your own desert island,
yeah,
and you're, like you said at the very beginning, you don't know what you don't know. And I think the other thing too is if someone gets in a mindset that their way is the right way, that is ego, almost
absolutely.
100% of the time. And I think there's validity in having experience and wisdom, and having a path, versus someone being up on their high horse around the way in which they're living. And I think there are differences to that, but just wanting people to be able to reflect on, how do I communicate things about the way I do things and the way I run my team or the company? Or, I mean, I'm a big believer too that leadership happens in the home. Who you are in the home
Absolutely.
translates to
Absolutely.
who you are in business.
Yeah,
So, I
absolutely.
want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's why, things like golf become such a great business game to pick up, because guess what? To your point, people are who they are wherever they are,
Hmm.
you know? So if I'm somebody that goes nuts when I make a mistake and throws clubs and stomps around and all that, well, guess what? I'm probably like that at work.
Right.
If I'm someone that cheats on my score or doesn't, keep it properly, chances are I'm probably cheating at work in some ways too. So if you're looking to do business with somebody, a game like golf is a great one because you can observe how this person operates.
Yep. Yep.
They may tell you, "Oh, I'm, this and that, and my values, and da 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 da," but watch their feet. I always say, the folks I coach, and like you can say whatever you want, but it's how you behave is what
Right.
really matters. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some common pitfalls there. Is there an example of, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot with this, so
Uh
can
oh.
think of something great. If not, it's okay too. But can you give an example that is, um, maybe a situation where you didn't know if the company or the person or whoever, one of your clients, could recover from a certain situation, that you were able to help them out of, and or any sort of example along those lines of what was the situation, like a real life situation, and what was your method?
Well, here's a really good one, I think, along the lines of where I think you want to go. There was a woman I was coaching. She was on her way up, the corporate ladder. She had a pretty good title. She had a good team beneath her. Her boss thought she was out of sight, right? And yet, when I did the 360, which is part of what I do when I'm coaching folks, I have them do a self-assessment so we can see what they think of themselves, and then I have them do a 360 that I conduct to kind of get a feel for what it's like to work with this individual, and then we compare and contrast those two views, and,
Yeah.
and it's through that we identify blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, in the 360s, the blind spot was she's really a tyrant to work for. So I kind of talked to her about it. I said, look, there's this blind spot. Your boss thinks you're great and your team thinks you're bad. So um, you're probably pretty frustrated, right, with your team. Well, yeah, I'm really impatient with them. And yeah, I guess I do strike out at them. And, sure, I understand why they probably feel that way. But, and then she fills in the blanks with all the stuff that her team doesn't do. And she has to go and do it for them and so on.
Mm.
So I said, well, that's no way to live, right? I mean, beyond leading, you're probably just not happy with this, right? Well, no, I'm frustrated. I'm like, okay. And she had longer hair. And I said, do you ever put your hair in an elastic? Yeah, I do. I'm like, okay, well, I bet you probably put it around your wrist, right? She says, sure. I go, okay, well, then just have an elastic around your wrist. And the next time you're interacting with your team and you're feeling your blood pressure go up and you're about to explode, snap the elastic on your
Mm-hmm.
wrist and kind of remind yourself like leadership's about them, it's not about you.
Yep.
And give your team what they need to perform at their higher level. If you do that, guess what? They're going to start performing better. They're going to start liking the work that they've got. Still going to be dynamite from your boss's point of view,
Yep.
because she definitely kissed up and kicked down.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of the reality of it. But yeah, I think she started to practice what we were talking about, and I think she started to see a difference, and she really incorporated it into her leadership,
Mm-hmm.
repertoire.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. Actually, use that technique with some of my clients, whether it is a coaching client or a therapy client. But any sort of uh, it's a physiological cue to
Sure.
get yourself out of a physiological state you don't want to be in,
Yep.
essentially.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's smart. That's a really good practical tip with that. And I think the cure for most ego is being in service to.
Yeah.
It's not what is. I think of like a team, or yeah, like it's almost like a marriage, right? And if it's about me and my feelings and what I want and what you didn't do and what I should have or whatever it may be, then the marriage is falling apart. Then the team is falling apart. But when it
Absolutely.
how does
Yeah.
this affect us? You know, what can we all do to get to where we want to be?
Right.
And just that simple, quick sort of reframe, and I am in service to these people
Right.
out of the bigger service that we're doing
Right.
as a team. Because if you are in that mindset, there's no way for ego to have room to breathe.
Yeah. Right. Because you catch yourself. You're changing your behavior based on that mindset.
Hmm.
But if you don't have it, like if you don't have that mindset, if you don't believe leadership's about them and not us,
Yeah.
then you're in trouble. And
Yep.
yeah, I think the marriage example is a great one because if it's all about me,
Hmm.
then I'm not a great partner.
Yeah. 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 Well, and if we're going along with that analogy, whether it's in a relationship with someone else or this is the business that we're talking about, you know, if it is about image, if it is about status, if it is about what can happen so I can get whatever it is,
Yeah.
then you will end up on that desert island. If in a relationship, it is uh, about how you hurt me, and it's about my feelings, and it's about then you're going to end up on that desert island.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over. And
Yeah.
so I really like that approach to, you're having your client identify what their internal cue is that is triggering this
Right.
behavior that isn't helping, right? And so giving them a strategy to take responsibility
Right.
for their emotional state that's creating an unhealthy behavior,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then changing the attitude of in service to. And
Yeah. And
that's the
that's the right mindset. Yeah.
mm-hmm, yeah. Uh, in your journey as a coach, um, what has been some of your biggest struggles, but then also like the most rewarding parts of it?
Well, I mean, seeing the difference is the most rewarding part. When people come back and go, yeah, you know what, I tried that and it works.
Yeah,
It just makes you feel good, right?
yeah,
You must have it every day. But um, yeah, so I think that's the most rewarding part. The toughest part is, I think, making sure you're able to come in to working with somebody on their terms to bring them to this other place.
hmm,
So to me, that's probably the biggest challenge, and it's about connecting with people.
yeah,
But I think you want to establish that connection as quickly as you can
for sure. Yeah.
because you have to build trust.
Hmm.
And once we get the trust quotient high
Hmm.
between us, then real learning and change and all that
Yeah.
can begin. But without it, it's sort of like two people kind of talking through each other instead
Yeah.
of with each other.
What do you find to be some of the biggest challenges in establishing trust?
Well, I think at the end of the, in the end at the end of the day, I think people have to want to
Yeah.
trust. It's a personal thing. I think I can encourage you to trust me through my behavior,
Hmm.
right? So if I'm behaving in a trustful way,
Hmm.
trustworthy way, then I'm hoping you'll take it on yourself to trust me.
Hmm.
But I can't make you trust me. You
Right.
have to. That comes from you. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I
And
try to be a straight shooter. I mean, at the end of you know me pretty well at this point.
hmm.
I'm not really a BS artist. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna say what I think,
Yeah.
and I'm okay if you disagree with me. I think you know that too, right?
Yeah.
You can say something and go, yeah, well, Jim, I don't agree, and I'm like, okay, now tell me more, because I'm excited about by that.
Yeah.
Like I want to learn
Hmm.
and I want to get better at what I do.
Yep.
So I want that feedback. And if you've got a different idea and you show me this is a better idea, then I'm all over it because I get inspired by the idea, not
Sure.
necessarily the
Sure.
time with the
Yeah.
person, but I
Yep.
love the ideas that go around. That's
Yeah.
how I get
Yeah.
energized.
And that to me is proof in the pudding about who you are and what you do and how good you are at what you do, is because you what you model for someone when you do that is like an acceptance of differences,
Mm, yeah,
and you're not leading in a way that's like, well, I've done this for so long, so I may know, because
right,
every person's different and their own baggage is different and their own way of doing things, and it's this,
right,
and so it's like, I would imagine that your response to that for some people may be a little surprising, because they know they're about to challenge you, and could be waiting for you to just tell them what they're doing wrong or whatever it may be. Versus now it's this beautiful collaboration together,
yeah,
and that's showing them how effective that is for them to go and do that with their teams.
absolutely. And I try to be empathetic, so I'm hearing where they're coming from. I'm trying to understand that, like where are you starting? Like what's your frame of reference? Because if I don't understand that, it's going to be hard for me to provide any guidance. Like
Yeah.
if we were going to take a trip
Yeah.
from Atlanta to Jackson, Mississippi, I'd have to know we're starting in Atlanta, you know, because the directions would be much different if we were starting in Boston,
Right, right.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, well, so before we start to wrap up the book that you're releasing, um, I'm going to have you share where everyone can find that and all that good stuff here in a second. I'll make sure I put all of that in the notes as well. But I'm curious, what's your favorite chapter of the whole book?
Yeah, well, okay, a little bit about how the book's organized. I've got sort of six general topics, and the tips are organized by topic. So I guess you could say the six topics are the chapters. Each tip is pretty short and sweet. I mean, it's a couple of pages. It's just
Yeah,
I really am trying to convey information that you can readily consume and use. So
yeah,
that's the spirit of the book. That's how I wrote it, and so on. So I love all of them.
what are the six topics?
Well, it's leadership mindset, it's
Yeah,
vision, it's team, it's trust. Yeah, it's all this stuff we've been talking about,
foundational stuff.
frankly. Yeah, but I guess leadership mindset might be my favorite
Mhm.
set of tips because I think the whole thing starts between our two ears,
It
man.
does. It does. I was literally just listening to something the other day, and it's research over decades of. It was on tennis players, and it's what's the difference between the top five tennis players in the country versus the top 25, and consistently the research shows it's not the work ethic because they all have great work ethic. It's not necessarily certain types of techniques or nutrition stuff like that maybe someone has an edge on.
Mm,
It's the automatic thought that they think to themselves after the first time they make a mistake
mm,
or after every mistake that they make.
yeah,
And that is the edge. So your mindset is the edge on everything.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, self-talk, and I've done a lot on that, as you know, and I think we have to change the script. We have to flip the script. And I've written about it. I write for Psychology Today. I wrote an article about it there. There's stuff in Inc. magazine that I've written about it. You know, for me, it's that self-talk is one of the big things that I try to bring forward in the coaching work,
Yeah.
so it can help people sort of change the way they operate. And like I say, it starts between our own two ears. So
Yeah.
if you look at a mistake and start to really do a number on yourself,
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
how do you think you're going to behave? How do you think you're going to interact with people? How are you
Yeah.
going to lead them? If you're constantly doing a number
Yep. Yep.
versus seeing it as an opportunity to learn and grow and get better and
Yep. Yep.
adjust and all that.
Yeah, that's very much in line with cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's CBT. What it is the relationship between your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Yeah,
Certain thoughts create certain emotional responses,
yeah,
which lead to certain behaviors. And we can change how we feel by changing our behavior and changing our thoughts. And we're all usually chasing some sort of emotional state.
yeah.
And so that's awesome. All right. So, where can everybody get your book, and where can everybody find you?
Okay, well, everyone can get their book wherever they buy their books
Hmm.
because the book's available, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you get your books. You can certainly order it if it's not in the shelf, if you're going to a bricks and mortar thing. Online, you can find it in those locations. My publisher is Routledge. They're a well-known publisher out of the UK. They've been around since the late 1800s. I mean, it's a well-established place. So that's another online outlet that you can check out as well. As far as finding me, it's indispensable-consulting.com is the website. I'm launching a new site. I'm kind of excited about it. It's going to be up in a couple of weeks. It's called
Oh,
indispensable-coaching.com.
awesome.
And that's really going to be a subscription site where
Mhm.
people can go get good leadership ideas. There'll be videos and things to read and some training content and so on. So that'll be up, like I say, in the next couple of weeks. And
Congrats. That's awesome.
yeah, so that's indispensable-coaching. And then otherwise, it's indispensable-consulting.com.
Yeah, I got the website going on the bottom there for people to
Ah,
see.
cool. Great.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, Jim, this has been wonderful. The last question I have before we go is, if you could leave one message for everybody, and let's say they never read a book of yours, you know, you have to go off to your own desert island and you can't take all the things with you, but you could leave this piece of advice or this message. What would that be?
In regard to leadership,
Anything.
yeah, I mean, I think sticking with the leadership theme, I think the biggest thing that people need to wrap their head around is leadership's about them, it's not about us.
Yeah.
And we talked about it earlier in this conversation, but yeah, you got to remember that your job as a leader is to give the people that you're leading what they need to do an excellent job.
Hmm.
So it's them, it's not you. So
Yeah.
if you start feeling like it's about you, make a pivot because you're on the wrong path.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I'm excited to get the book. After I get it and I read it, then we're going to do a part two so we
Okay.
can do a deeper dive
Excellent.
into some of the content. Always
Beautiful.
appreciate talking with you. If y'all don't know Jim, get to know him, connect with him. He's good people right here. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, right back at you, Mandy. Thanks so much. I really appreciate this time together.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody.